Well, that's the end of it, everybody. Quebec has come to an end of their season. Got 2 jobs out of it, 3 weeks. It was good. Hope for a little more. Bruce Power was calling too, but I guess they filled that. So it's time to go back to Alberta, but not before I stop in Montreal, Quebec City. Visit Quebecois in Canada, the 51st state. Our Party 51 friends. We're going to see everybody. I'm going to work over the next 2 days this weekend with the French to try to see if we can find an accountant to register the party, go through the federal legal system, teach that to the Quebecois, much different than the provincial level. Other than that, we have everything done for the party. Signature drive completed right across Canada. I believe, depending on how this weekend goes, I'm going to open it up to more memberships, party memberships. I'm going to try and get the ladies going on that again, and we'll fire that up. We're almost at 10,000, so there's about 4,000 outstanding memberships we could take on, and we might as well do that. I've got stacks, and then online as well, too. So we'll go through that again, get that started and going, so that when we do apply, if we can get the accountant, and just so everybody understands, it's not just being an accountant with a designation and a practice registered in a province or territory. It's that they are on the list of auditors from the federal government, and they're willing to take that chance, okay? So it's tough. Went through the Anglo-Canadian world, could not find anybody in any province, nobody willing to put it on the line for Canada, the 51st state, let alone a republic. So we're going to try that. We're going to go again. We're going to see if we have better luck with the Quebec registered program and see if the Quebecois can find somebody. If we do that, we will have a party registered. I can guarantee you all of that. And of course, that's why we'll open up memberships. But now, I finished the federal budget. I was laid off last night, went to bed early, got up early, of course, clean up, and then we're going to be traveling today. But I went through the budget, and there's the almost 500 pages. There's 569, but actual effective financial data, it's 493 pages. I went through that, and immediately what jumped out at me is the Liberals trying to trick all of you that we're going to take spending down, public spending's going down, but capital investment's going way, way up. Yeah, you have to go back to Stephen Harper outside of COVID-19 to find this kind of massive capital flight. And what do I mean by that? Well, in 2008 and 9, there was the housing crisis here in Canada, lending, and they said all over North America, yet it wasn't a crisis in America, never was. A few banks went under, others bought them up. Nobody lost any houses. Americans still very strong. However, in Canada, all of our chartered banks had to be bailed out. Capital investment, what does that mean? Well, just like this budget and just like Stephen Harper's budget, they're saying you, the taxpayers, have to invest. So we're going to borrow against all of you losers. Yeah, you working losers and all of your children. I don't care if you own your house, your property, your business, all the assets you have. We're going to borrow a tremendous amount. More than everything you own. We're going to borrow that in the next 4 years. We're going to borrow all of that. And we're going to be the investment into Canada's future, because we can't get any investment from anywhere else in the world. Nobody wants to invest in you. They're all investing in the United States. I've already went through this. So everything we've lost in foreign investment into Canada, Mark Carney is saying, we now have to borrow against all of you and your children beyond all measure. And we're going to borrow all that to invest in infrastructure and public services that they're scaling back down. So explain it to me, everybody. Explain it to me. You need to do all these massive investments into services and infrastructure, but you're going to be laying people off, reducing service sector, you claim, by 10%. But what about all this new infrastructure? How many people are you going to hire? You're not going to be laying off anybody. You're going to be actually hiring more and more. That's how you're going to manipulate the data. Like most communist countries, that's exactly how they manipulate the public. Oh, look, we're not increasing taxes. We're not giving you any tax relief, but we're not increasing taxes. But we're going to borrow against all of you at an unprecedented, unbelievable rate. Claim of $78 billion a year, going down to $58 billion supposedly by 2030. Folks, NATO's not in there. Defense spending, not in there. Not in there. None of those contracts have been signed. So where is all of that money? Where is it? So either we're going to remain well below 2% NATO commitment, like 1.4 at best, or we're going to have to borrow a tremendously more amount of money, maybe not this year, but next year, even though we're borrowing a tremendous amount. The tune of $500 billion far outpaces Stephen Harper. As I've told everybody, the only thing this guy has seen since economics and being trained in managerial accounting, the only thing I've ever seen in this country since graduating that program is every prime minister doubling down on not only the prime minister before them, but add all the prime ministers together. We have not been on any kind of path of financial stability or national security or the interest and security of the Canadian people that I've seen since 2001. Haven't seen it. All I've seen, just like this budget too, we will invest in bringing in a tremendous amount of new Canadians to trick the United States of America. We are taking the definition of illegal immigrant and making it legal. We've got C3, that now that any Canadian who goes overseas and starts procreating in foreign third world countries all over the place, friend or foe of Canada, Canada's going to reciprocate all of them. You're invested in this budget to bring all of those children and families home. All of them. And they will be given citizenship. That's what we're paying for in this budget. We're spending more on immigration than we are on our housing. I go into fentanyl and opiate and all that stuff because the places we're targeting in this budget for this preferred new immigration is all of that of the British Empire, the home base of fentanyl and all opiates since the British Empire, since Emperor Edward VII, yes, Queen Victoria, Queen Elizabeth that everybody worships, the drug dealing worst cartel in the entire world. By far, there is nobody else, no South America drug lord world beyond that of the British Empire and the British monarchy. When you see a Canadian wearing that poppy, the poppy, Flanders Field, my ass. Americans and Russians don't wear that. Americans and Russians outlawed that in the 50s. 2 republics, 2 we the people systems. That's all in our miraculous budget. Hundreds of billions of dollars over the next 6 years, supposedly. Of course, that'll change as it always does every year. Just like this $78 billion, I can tell you already that in capital expenditures, debt loading all Canadians, that is going to be way beyond what they say. I would say add another 32%. And why? Because you have to. Because USA will not stand for anything less. There's no Golden Dome in this. There's no F-35s. There's none of that. None of it. None of that's even touched yet, let alone NORAD or the rest of NATO, expanding those bases up into the Arctic. None of that's there. Didn't find a shred of it. Went through all those detailed pages, not 1 ounce of it mentioned. Everything we have now is all about expanding conservatives and liberals. And when I say this, there are conservatives who've already jumped over. They're hard vested in Mark Carney. They're more vested than most Liberal MPs. Not that all the Liberal MPs are on board. All the NDP MPs are on board. They're all on board. And we're seeing floor crossing now. People, just like Premier Danielle Smith, that when push comes to shove, their bank accounts growing exponentially at your exponential debt loading is what's important to them. You know, the life raft that this budget gives to make sure every MP in power today who goes along with Mark Carney, even though Mark Carney's lost on the world stage. This whole transition into the Green New Deal is a transition into China. We are borrowing to invest in infrastructure and development for China, not China investing in us. China's invested in the United States, not us. The ships are moving. IMO, I checked again today, all routes on track to the U.S. USA's going to have their Thanksgiving, Super Bowl, and guess what? All their farmers' crops are going to China. Guess what Canada doesn't have? China. We still don't have it. No deal. No deal. Tariffs remain. We've been deceived huge. Canadians love it. I guess if you want to transition into a job in government. But I'm going to warn everybody who thinks that they're going to transition into new government jobs. Communism doesn't work. Mass socialism and debt loading the people, all you do is continue to bring the people down into a lower class. I can tell you by 2030, a vast amount of people under the age of 35 in the good 80 percentile will be working poor. They will be what's known as second class, meaning they're below the poverty line. And that will be massive forever more going forward. Very few, less than 5%, will be able to escape that. And again, those who do, it's because they have generational wealth passed on to them to make that jump. But anybody in the average Joe Jane status under the age of 35, which is my children, any grandchildren have in the future, that will be the new Canadian way. This budget says it all. It sets the stage for where Canada's going, not with the United States. There's nothing in the budget that meets or showcases us moving towards the United States or making progress towards defense and security that is at the bare minimum what Canada must meet with the United States. We're not there. We're definitely not investing any money there. Everything in the capital budget plan is all for destroying USA, all for transitioning to China. Instead of following the path of Japan, European Union, South Korea, I can go on, right through the Middle East, people who've never really technically been super allies and trading partners with the United States are replacing us. Our budget shows a government in majority, clearly now today, conservative, liberal, NDP in majority, that wants to make the communist transition, wants to go toe-to-toe with the United States economically and physically. physically, meaning they want to make that Great Wall of USA and try to limit USA expansion in trade and global sphere of influence. Canada has decided in this budget that they are going to debt load the people beyond anyone ever, beyond COVID-19 and forevermore. As we hit the 2030, people talk about that. We've already made that transition, folks. We're already working on Agenda 2050, which is the communist transition. When a monarchy falls, this is where they generally go 99 times out of 100. USA is a phenom. Switzerland, there's a couple others. There's one African small state that didn't go that route. But really, when you look at 193 nations, all the others go to civil law socialism, extreme military dictatorship, or full-on communism. And your politicians in Canada, do not make this mistake, especially for Americans. Do not make the mistake of using the terminology liberal and conservative. Those are Canadian words. Unfortunately, religious groups in the States adopted more of the Catholic side of it, and it's kind of poisoned a lot of what I call the Bible Belt of America. So Americans have picked that up. That's words from Canada, words you shouldn't use, because this is the anti-American language, and it's easy to start using these words and getting comfortable with them when they don't mean what you think they do. And to know this, all you have to do is go to Webster and Oxford, and you learn the truth. Liberal conservative is in a monarchical state. It's a real superior human being state. It's not about equality of the person. It's about class structure, pyramid, and it's about assigned equity. How much worth you're going to be given, or what you're capable of generating in your lifetime in that pyramid. And think of the pyramid now in Canada has sunken below the water. So the lower tiers are below the water, below a standard of living measurable in the United States. Lots of Canadians are in that, more than 22%. But by the time we hit 2030, that's going to be more like 33%. Just off this budget alone and where Canadians are going. The massive government expenditure and growth in infrastructure, owned entirely and centralized by the government, and governments at the regional level split with the federal. You're going to see provincial budgets from this federal budget change forevermore too. Every province, all of them, are going to be spending way more than they generate in real GDP, which is absolutely what the federal budget is too, because none of this is in real GDP or primary sector GDP. It's not. It's all about infrastructure for China, not you, not Canada, and it's about going to China against the USA. Mark Carney's made his bed. The Crown has decided. Many conservatives are in the Carney camp because why? He was a 16-year conservative. He set up all their investments. They're all in on it. Even Pierre Poilievre is in on it. He's got 2 payments to China published by CSIS, 2 over 28,000, another one over 30 payments from the Communist Party of China. He's there. He's a Green New Deal guy too. Daniel Smith is too. Scott Moe is too. Doug Ford absolutely is too. I can go on and on and on. And those are premiers, first ministers. So these folks who talk about liberal, conservative, well, what is the conservative? It's liberal conservative. That's its registry. Liberal conservative and liberal. Those are the only 2 longest running legal parties in Canada. You can change a name. You can put lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig. And the idea of conservative, liberal, it's all a lie. And you can say, oh, but I'm religious. You can't be Christian following the teachings of Christ. Can't be Muslim and following the teachings of Muhammad. You can't be Sikh. You can't be a Buddhist. You can't even be Punjab. We can go on Hindus. You can't be any of those things and live in a caste system of class structure, inequality, and a superiority, fascism. You can't live in a monarchical situation and still be a real religious person in those style faiths. Judaism, same thing. You can't be that and then yet follow somebody else narrating themselves as a divine monarch with divine powers and superiority over classes of subjects. Anyone who calls himself a Christian or an Old Testament style folk, or again, a Judaist, Hindu, Sikh, a Muslim, you can't be any of those things. I've read all those texts involved in all those religions, and there are red flags on this system and what your autocratic government's doing and what you're accepting. Those are violations of the highest laws of all those religions listed. So when you transition into this extreme socialism, this communism off a massive budget that doesn't even give you all of it, there's still a pile more of spending. At least $250 billion more promised by Carney to foreign powers that's going to be saddled on every Canadian. So 480? No, more like $750 billion. Double who? Stephen Harper. How does he match up with Trudeau? Over him too, and it's not even COVID. And this is, we have to invest in Canada because no one will invest in us. Why won't, out of 193 nations, how come none will invest in us? Because Donald Trump's a meanie and he tariffed them all not to? Or is it because Canada's a bad investment? Who else is a bad investment? Oh yeah, every extreme socialism in the world, all the communisms, they run on complete central funding. The people pay. The next generation pays until the bottom falls out, the bottom of the pyramid that right now is underwater, Canada. Canada does not have a future. Anyone thinking you can buy your sovereignty? Sovereignty isn't something you buy. It's something you, the people, cement in a constitutional document, and you create that soul of the nation, where it's the government that's beholden to you. And those are the only real elections. Otherwise, you're just selecting your dictator. A selection. An electoral autocracy. Anyways, folks, that's my video. Lots there. I'll be reaching out to Quebecois a little later today to plan out the next 2 days as I head back to Alberta. And we're going to see if we can get that done. So God bless everybody. That's my video. An important one. Lots of knowledge in there. Lots of truth of this budget. I gave you 2 things there that are critical. I gave you capital expenditures versus public debt. They're one and the same. Public service expense. They're all one and the same. Just different avenues of using money and taking out massive loans. Massive loans that you're now not getting from the United States. You've moved on to who? The British Empire, who's going to fund you into the ground. And remember, inflation follows you, the Canadian subject, not the government borrower. Okay, you get that? That's how it works. It's always worked in Canada. And now, on a government level, federally and provincially, when your governments borrow for these capital expenditures, they're borrowing from a different institution where it's you, the low-life, dirty subject, who has to eat all the inflation and the ever-rising cost of that debt, the most highest costs of debt servicing we've ever seen and are always going to see. Our credit rating is going to be the next thing that's hit, absolutely, after Carnage Carney wipes you all out at double the rate of Stephen Harper. And why? Because every prime minister doubles down on the one before. It's about 3/4 of what Trudeau did. but you can look at COVID and the whole world scam there. But what I'm saying is go look at the previous, and it's insane. It's insane. He's way out producing Justin Trudeau in crazy, and we don't have a viable tax plan to pay for that. And why? Because we have this debt GDP to explode beyond all measure. Folks, that's my video. Awesome. Share. Get it out there. Educate as many as you can. Don't let all these people try to overwhelm you. Remember, it's mass immigration now. Way more than we've ever experienced before. Lots of replacement jobs to lower Canadian wages in the face of higher and higher costs of living. You're going to have to learn to live as second class. And by 2050, we may very well be third class. When you look at the world, that's terrible. That's living on less than $40 a month. Think about that. Second class, we're looking at $1,200 a month. The average of 30% of the population by 2030. That's what this budget says mathematically. God bless everybody. Sure. Get it out there. Bye now.